Welcome to Patriots Corner Live with Dr. Hill Law. While most of our episodes are politically driven and focused, today's discussion is going to be on. Oh, second, my machine's not working. Today's discussion is about a bipartisan issue that nearly all Americans agree on: the affordability crisis related to rents. Welcome to Patriots Corner Live with Dr. Hill. So why in the world? I just want to let you know. So, today we're going to be addressing an issue that transcends political divides and unites nearly all Americans: the pervasive and ever growing affordability crisis, specifically concerning rental housing. This isn't a red state or blue state problem. It's a fundamental challenge impacting individuals and families across the nation, regardless of their potential. And hold on one second. I want to stop for a second. I just noticed I don't have a couple things up. Um, let me forgot that I've don't have a couple things up going real fast. All right, that's why I wanted to get going there. Let me get my chat up. All right, so I got my chat up. For some reason, my little box stopped working. All right, now let me get back to where I was. It's a fundamental challenge impacting individuals and families across the nation, regardless of their political affiliations or socioeconomic backgrounds. The soaring cost of rent has become a critical point of concern, creating immense financial strain and threatening the stability of communities across the nation. If you are new here, please hit that like button, subscribe, and the ring notification bell so you don't miss future streams. You can catch Patriots Corner live 3 evenings a week on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Facebook, and X. If you can't catch it live, you can listen to all the episodes on Spotify, Amazon, and iHeartRadio approximately an hour after we air live, or you can catch them all on our website at Patriots Corner with drlaw.com, which is also going across the bottom of the screen there. Your engagement is crucial to the success of Patriots Corner. If you have a question or want to make a statement, please do so. I'll review them at the end of each segment, reading a few live and answering questions from respectful comments that foster intellectual debate. Your feedback is invaluable in shaping the discussion. Also, do not forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe to keep the conversation going. Now, America has a massive, undeniable, and deeply painful affordable housing problem. It's a quiet crisis that echoes the widening gap between wages and rent, and the headlines about record low home ownership and in the anxious dinner table conversations of millions of families. It can feel like a force of nature, an unsolvable equation where the cost of a basic human need, a place to live, keeps spiraling further and further out of reach, especially depending on where you live. Now, when we talk about government solutions, most people's minds almost immediately jump to one place, one program that has become synonymous with housing aid, Section 8. We picture vouchers, direct rental assistance, a system where the government steps in to help a family pay the landlord. It's a well known name, a familiar concept. But what if I told you that the single biggest and most powerful affordable housing program in the United States, the one responsible for financing the construction of millions of homes, is something most people have never ever heard of? What if I told you this program doesn't give a single dollar to a renter, but instead works by giving massive multi-million dollar tax breaks to the people who build the apartments? Now, I just wanted to make sure my mic is working. Okay, so it is working. Alrighty, good. Now, this invisible engine of affordable housing is called the Low Income Housing Tax Credit, or LIHTC. And it's just received a monumental overhaul from a huge new piece of legislation signed into law on July 4, 2025, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. So, how does this giant hidden program actually work? Why is it so different from the Section 8 system we all think we know? And most importantly, what do the huge changes in this new bill mean for the future of housing in America? Could this obscure tax policy really be the key to making a dent in the housing crisis? To understand that, we first need to understand the solution we all know and why it's only one half of the story. So, I'm going to get started in a second. I forgot to do one little thing a minute ago whenever I was doing my posts for my stuff. So why is it not letting me do that? Oh, didn't even give me a description. Yeah, that's a problem. Oh, okay. I thought I'd put my description in there, but for some reason it wasn't. Hold on a second. Sorry about this, guys. Just didn't notice that. Didn't notice I didn't have this on my. Okay. That makes me wonder. I need to go check my. Wonder if, nope, it's in there. All right. All right. Let me do one other thing. I'm sorry. I thought I had all this taken care of before I started, and then I just noticed I didn't. So I've got to make sure that I have some of this stuff in there. So hopefully it will get me more people coming to my pages instead of it syncing and sending me nobody. So I'll be right back. All right. Now I'm good. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Sorry about that. I just didn't notice that I was missing that stuff on there. And of course, because I don't have my box, that didn't start. All right. Now let's get started going here. Okay, segment one, the solution we all know and its limits. When you hear government housing assistance, you're almost certainly thinking of the Housing Choice Voucher Program, usually or formerly known as Section 8. It's the most visible form of federal housing aid, and its premise is straightforward. At its core, Section 8 is what policy experts call demand side subsidy. Think of it like this: if the problem is that people can't afford groceries, Section 8 is like giving them a food coupon. It helps them buy the food that's already on the supermarket shelves. Imagine a low income family struggling with rent. If they qualify for a Section 8 voucher and are lucky enough to get one from a notoriously long waiting list, their local public housing authority helps them cover the cost. The family is generally required to pay about 30% of their income towards rent. Actually, it's max 30%. And the voucher, the government subsidy, pays the difference directly to the landlord. Now, one of these programs' key features is in its name, housing choice. The voucher is portable. In theory, a family can take it and find housing in the private market anywhere that will accept it. The money follows the person, giving them flexibility to choose a home that fits their needs, perhaps in a safer neighborhood or a better school district. This is the ideal scenario. It empowers the renter by giving them purchasing power in a market they'd otherwise be priced out of. However, anyone who has dealt with the Section 8 program knows the reality is far more complicated. The first hurdle is just getting one. Funding is not an entitlement, it's subject to annual budgets, and there's never enough money to serve anyone who qualifies. This creates staggering waiting lists in cities across the country, often closed for years at a time. Even the project-based vouchers, there's long waiting lists that developers can't even get it to it. So even for the lucky few, the challenges don't end there. They often face source of income discrimination. Landlords in many areas can refuse to rent to tenants with vouchers, fearing bureaucracy or stereotypes. But the most fundamental limitation of Section 8 is this: it does absolutely nothing to create new housing. Handing out food coupons doesn't build more supermarkets or stock more shelves. It's a program designed to help people pay for homes that are already on the market. It addresses the demand side of the economy equation, but doesn't touch the supply side. And that is the crux of the American housing crisis. It's not just that people can't afford rent, it's that in many places, there simply aren't enough affordable homes to go around. You can hand out all of the vouchers you want, but if there are no vacant apartments, they become little more than paper promises. This is where the other half of the story comes in: the invisible giant working not to help the renter, but to incentivize the builder. So now, as we come to the end of our first segment, I would like to remind you to please hit that like, comment, follow, or the subscribe button so you won't miss future episodes. Also, I will now take any questions, reply to a few comments before starting the next segment. Also, please don't forget to check out our website, which is going across the bottom of the screen there, Patriots Corner with Dr. Law, where you can sign up for free access to our weekly blog, receive notifications about our next live show, hit the subscribe button, which takes you to our locals community. There you can support the show, gain access to extra content, and participate in one-on-one discussions. All right. I don't see anybody here. Let me just get one more drink and I'll get going. I'm beginning to think I should have trying to get LinkedIn set up for tonight, because this probably would have done better on LinkedIn's page, but let's go ahead and get going. Section 2, the real power player inside the low-income housing tax credit. Now, while Section 8 helps people pay rent, the low-income housing tax credit, or LIHTC, works for the opposite direction. It's a supply-side program. Its goal isn't to help people afford existing housing. Its goal is to get more affordable housing built from the ground up. It does this not through direct government spending, but through the tax code in a way that is both brilliantly complex and profoundly impactful. Think of it this way: if the government wanted more people to buy apples, a Section 8 approach is to give people apple coupons. A LIHTC approach is to go to the apple orchard and say, hey, if you grow more apples and sell them at a discount, we'll give you a massive break on your taxes. So here's kind of a way summary of how it works. A developer wants to build, let's say, a 100-unit apartment building. Building housing is incredibly expensive. To make the project profitable, the developer needs to charge rents that are often far higher than what average families can afford. Nothing personal against the families, it's just what it costs to develop it. This is where LIHTC steps in. There are two LIHTC programs, the 9% competitive round and the 4% non-competitive round. Now, in the 9% competitive round, the federal government gives each state an annual allocation of tax credits. Think of these as get out of tax free cards. State agencies run a competition and award these valuable cards to developers for promising projects. If a developer's project is chosen, they get a set amount of tax credits, but there's the crucial part: a developer building apartments doesn't have a giant tax bill to use them on. Big corporations and banks, however, do. So the developer sells these get out of tax free cards to a bank for a massive pile of cash or equity. If a bank owes the IRS 10 million in taxes and buys 10 million in LIHTC credits, its tax bill is now zero. Now, also, these taxes are spanned out over 10 years. So this isn't saying they have a 10 million bill in 1 year. These why so many banks can purchase so much tax credit equity, because of the fact that this is over years and over 10-year terms. And obviously, they're never going to get if I really went into the depth and the nuts and bolts of how the tax credit program works, which if I have enough people to actually say they would like that, I could go fully into it on the developer side and get really technical on the breakdown. But pretty much they're never going to receive that full amount because of the market, rent, stabilization, a bunch of other stuff, timelines, all that. I'm not going to get into that tonight. But so this sale gives the developer a massive cash infusion of equity right at the start. It's like getting a giant down payment from a rich partner. This dramatically reduces the amount of money the developer needs to borrow. With a much smaller mortgage to pay back, they can afford to charge significantly lower rents and still run a financially stable property. In exchange, the developer must make a legally binding promise known as a land use agreement, or LURA, which the IRS enforces. For at least 15 years, they will receive a large portion of the units, if not all, for low-income tenants. And the 4% program states in the 4% program, states receive an annual allocation of government bonds, tax-exempt government bonds. Each year, developers can submit an application requesting a specific amount of tax-exempt bonds. Most states, because even though it's not competitive, they do what's called a lottery. So instead of it being as the application or as they receive them, whatever, everybody submits their applications in by October. In Texas, it's October 10th. And then around November 11th or whatever, or November 15th, they have the lottery at the state capitol where they literally run like a lottery machine. And whatever applications come out with that lottery number, that's the application in line where you are for funding. So it's not competitive, but it's still not a guaranteed. And so the developers that request those tax-exempt bonds currently have to need enough bonds to cover at least 50% of land acquisition costs, construction costs, and the developer fee, or known as qualified basis, to qualify for the tax credits. So while the application process, like I said, isn't competitive, there's still a limited amount of bonds that are out there that are required to obtain the tax credits. Now, this entire system was born out of the Tax Reform Act of 1986. It was a pivotal moment, a time when the philosophy of government was shifting away from large-scale public housing projects. The idea was to harness the power and efficiency of the private market. LIHTC was designed as a public-private partnership, a way to utilize tax incentives to encourage private companies to build affordable housing, thereby shifting the financial risk from taxpayers to private investors. Since then, it has become the single most important tool for financing affordable rental housing in the country. However, the way LIHTC defines affordable differs from that of Section 8. Rents in a LIHTC property are based on the area median income, or AMI. Imagine a city's income distribution as a ladder. The AMI is the middle rung. A LIHTC property typically must reserve its units for households it has to be on or below the 60% rung of that ladder. The maximum rent is then capped at 30% of that 60% income level, meaning that it can't be equal more than 30% of their income at the 60% income level. So give you this for example. If the middle income rung AMI for a family of two is 80,000, 60% of that is 48,000. The maximum rent for a one bedroom LIHTC unit would roughly be about $1,200 per month. A school bus driver earning 45,000 would qualify and find this affordable, but a part-time retail worker earning 25,000 while also qualifying would find that 1,200 rent is nearly 60% of their income, a severe burden. This is the catch. LIHTC successfully creates housing that is more affordable than the market creates housing that is affordable than the market, but it doesn't always reach the very poorest households without any other subsidy like a voucher. So let's draw the line clearly. Section 8 is a tenant-based demand-side subsidy administered by HUD. LIHTC is a project-based supply-side incentive overseen by the IRS. One is a social safety net. The other is a sophisticated financial instrument that for decades has been quietly building America's affordable housing stock, and that financial engine just got a major upgrade. So now as we come to the end of our second segment, I'd like to please remind you to make sure you like, comment, follow, or hit the subscribe button so you won't miss future episodes. Also, I will now check for comments, see if there's any questions or anything, and answer them. Don't forget to check out our website down there at the bottom, going across the screen at patriotscorner.drlaw.com, where you can sign up for access to our weekly blog, receive notifications about our next live, and hit the subscribe button, which takes you to our locals community. There you can support the show, gain access to exclusive content, and participate in one-on-one discussions. So before I get on to section 3, which will kind of explain what happened with the big, beautiful bill and the changes to the system, then I'll get into that. I tried to try something new because this is more, instead of just being political commentary that everybody's doing on, I figured it's a more specialized subject. And also it's something I know to a T because I do real estate development. So I work in affordable housing development. This is what I do for a living. And I wanted to talk about because these changes just happened. While these changes have been on, they've been requested for a really long time. I mean, it's not like somebody had this is just happening today. I mean, these have been hopefully coming for a while, and they finally got here. And also it's kind of funny that I'll get to end of this in a minute, but all right, let me go and grab one more drink, then we'll get started back up. I think it's at the end of this section. I'm going to go ahead and get these fully pulled up full screen for a second for the next segment, as I'm pretty sure it's segment 3 or segment 4 that I am going to show y'all some actually, because one of the things about affordable housing is people think of like the projects you think of in New York or government housing. They don't really, it's not what they really think of when you think of LIHTC, the type of apartments that you get. So I pulled up some pictures from projects that I have actually done myself, that are projects I've worked on that are recent within the last 2 to 3 years. And so I will get those. I got those pulled up now, so I will show them to y'all here in a minute when we get to them. But let me go ahead and get started on segment 3. So the big, beautiful bill and its monumental changes. Now, for years, housing advocates and lawmakers have pushed to expand and modernize the LIHTC program. They argued it wasn't keeping pace with the deepening housing crisis. Then came the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a major tax package signed into law on July 4, 2025 that passed with broad support on the left, on the right, but nobody on the left. Buried inside there was the most significant improvements to the LIHTC program in over 2 decades, which did have broad support up until it was attached to this. The bill makes several fundamental changes designed to put the LIHTC engine into overdrive. First, it delivers a massive permanent increase to the more valuable 9% housing tax credit. The new law boosts the annual state allocations by 12% starting in 2026. Think of the 9% credit as the high-octane fuel for building new apartments. This bill permanently increases the fuel shipment to every single state, meaning more credits to award and more construction engines getting fired up. just so people can understand, I'm going to explain the 4 and 9% a little better. So, what it is on the 4%, you get the tax credit equity is 100% boost. All right. And then you get the 9% is it's 130% boost. Really, base is 100. You can get up to 130% boost. That 9% is 130% boost on that. So it's a whole lot more equity required. Smaller projects, they're more meant for smaller projects, 100 units, 110 units, 120 units. They're more meant to have a lot of deeper affordability. So 30% AMI, 50% AMI, more than way below 60% AMI. Some of them, 9% can have market rate projects in them, and because they're not required to have tax exempt bonds because there's the application process for it. So that's kind of the difference. Is it's the size of the projects and the amount of credits you get, not just the competitiveness. It's really the affordability and the amount of credits, the amount of equity you get per project. Now, second, the bill tackles a huge bottleneck in the 4% tax credit program, and really 9%. Well, tax is known as the 50% test. The 4% LIHTC is generally available automatically if a project is financed with a significant amount of tax exempt private activity bonds, which is what I talked about earlier. For decades, the rule required that at least 50% of a project's cost or eligible basis, which, like I said, it's just construction, land acquisition, and development, the developer fee. It's not all your development costs rolled into one, because then it would be a whole lot more money required. Now, that requires 50% of those projects to be paid for these bonds to qualify for the tax credits. If you don't have the 50% bonds, you don't get the tax credits. So imagine you need 50 special golden tickets from the state to get your project approved. The problem is states only get a handful of these rare tickets to give out each year. The new law rewrites this rule, lowering the golden ticket requirement from 50 down to just 25 starting in 2026. Now, this is partially a game changer. Suddenly, a state's limited supply of golden tickets can be spread across it says twice, but it's not really twice as many projects, unlocking the same amount of investment for each one. And I'm going to explain that to you in a second. That's what they look at it as, is because they say, oh, it went from 50% test to 25% test. So now it unlocks double the amount of projects. In theory, it should. And this is also where I have a little issue with this bill and how they should have really constructed it to guarantee a doubling of the projects. And because if we had truly doubled them, we probably could have gotten closer to 2 million instead of an estimated 1.22 million affordable rental homes over the next 10 years. Now, the bill also reflects a broader shift in priorities. It makes the pro-growth opportunity zone programs permanent, tightens its eligibility, man, I can't speak tonight, eligibility to be targeted distressed areas while enhancing investors' benefits to drive capital into those communities. At the same time, it reclaims taxpayer money by rescinding all unobligated funds for the Green and Resilient Retrofit Program, GRRP, and phasing out several energy efficient tax credits from the Inflation Reduction Act, or really the Green New Deal. The focus is clear: empowering private investments and getting back to the core mission of building more homes. Now, affordable housing developers have been advocating for these changes for years, ever since I can remember, since I've been in the business. And it was a bipartisan bill until Trump was elected. When it was included in the One Big Beautiful Bill, all of a sudden they don't want to vote for it anymore. While I'm excited about these changes, I still believe there is one major change that could occur, which would double the number of projects that receive funding. And you may ask, how is this feasible? Well, instead of decreasing the test from 50% to 25%, they should set a maximum limit of 25% test. Although the official test has been lowered, projects must still achieve 26 to 29% to satisfy banks, because obviously your construction costs can lower and increase during construction. So if you go to a bank and you say, okay, I've gotten exactly 50% bonds, but then you go in and your construction cost goes up, and now all of a sudden you've only got 48%. Now you don't qualify for those tax credits. So the bank's not going to go with that. They're going to want a cushion. So when it was at the 50% test, they usually required somewhere between 53 and 59%, depending on the bank, the developer's record, a bunch of other problems in there that could have caused the banks to go for whatever. So in reality, you're still not at 25%. Now, here's another thing is additionally, just because you only have to have a 25% meet the 25% test to get the tax credits, that doesn't mean that a developer can't request 50% in bonds if it proves to be more cost effective than obtaining the remaining debt through traditional methods. Either maybe they don't have the ability to get credit wise approved for a regular non tax exempt bond credit, regular mortgage type debt funding versus the bonds, or maybe and that way it's cheaper because usually the bonds are more expensive because of the state fees and all that stuff. But still, so if they had actually implemented a 25% maximum test for the bonds, which would have effectively doubled the funds available to developers, because then that would have meant that it can't be over 25%. If it couldn't have been over 25%, then or they would have had to return it, that would have actually doubled the amount of 4% low income housing tax credit that deals that would have actually become eligible for construction, because the tax credits are pretty much unlimited on the 4% end. There is no limit to those, but you have to have a certain amount of government bonds to qualify to accept to get those tax credits. So if it had been a 25 max, then it would have more than doubled it, because the banks would have been said, oh, hell no, you're not, you can only have 20%, or you can only have 22%. You can only ask for 20 or 22%. The rest of you got to get it through the debt, another debt partner. And you already have to go through a debt partner to get 25% anyways. So doesn't matter. And that's what they should have done. Because in reality, we could have raised that 1.22 million to almost 2.1 million in new homes for our teachers, firefighters, paramedics, police officers, and other frontline workers who don't earn enough to afford market rents, but make too much to qualify for housing choice vouchers. So as we come to the end of our third segment, I would like to remind you to please like, comment, follow, or hit the subscribe button so you won't miss future episodes. Also, I will now take any questions, reply to a few comments. And before I start the next segment, please don't forget to check out our website. You can go to the website, sign up for access to our weekly blog, receive notifications about our next live show, and hit the subscribe button, which will take you to our local channel. There you can sign up to support the show, gain access to extra content, and participate in one-on-one discussions. All right. I guess it was my fourth segment that, well, actually, really, it's the fifth segment, but because, yeah, it's really the fifth segment that I get into the pictures, but at least I got them up right now. All right. All right, that's good enough. Let's go ahead. I don't see any comments. Yeah, don't see any comments here on anything, so I will go ahead and get started on segment 4. Now, what this means to you, the real world impact. So what does this complex tax policy actually mean for the average person? First and foremost, it means more homes. The projection of over 1.22 million additional affordable units isn't just a number. In a state like New York, these changes are expected to help build over 73,500 new affordable homes. These are homes for the people who make our communities run, but are increasingly priced out: daycare workers, paramedics, entry-level teachers, and young families. This is housing for the missing middle households that earn too much for direct aid, but are not nearly enough for the market rents. This housing market is often like a car dealership that only sells ultra luxury sports cars and cheap, unreliable scooters. This bill helps finance the production of reliable, affordable family sedans that most working people can actually afford. Sorry. By making it financially easier to build, these changes will help close the supply gap at the heart of the housing crisis. Basic economics tells us that when supply increases, price pressures tend to decrease. While these new units won't solve the crisis overnight, they are a significant step forward towards stabilizing rents. Furthermore, these changes make the system more efficient. By lowering the 50% test, the bill gives states more flexibility to direct their resources where they're needed most, rather than being constrained by an inefficient federal rule. Now, of course, some critics argue that LIHTC is an indirect subsidy to developers and corporate investors, but proponents counter that Its public-private partnership model is the greatest strength, bringing private sector discipline and capital to the table in a way the government can never have done alone. They argue it's the only program that successfully produced affordable housing at scale for over nearly 40 years. Another valid critique is that LIHTC still may not serve the most vulnerable populations, those with extremely low or no income. The current bill is a massive step forward on supply, but it doesn't fully solve the deep affordability problem for the poorest Americans. Now, that's not totally true because you also have, on top of the housing choice vouchers, you have what's called project-based vouchers. Now, 4% deals, especially the nines, not a lot of 4%, but a lot of the nines actually use project-based vouchers to bring in the more affordable 30%, 50% AMI units and make the project affordable. Now, the only difference there is instead of the person having to wait in a long line to get a voucher and be able to have to worry about where they're even going to be able to use that voucher, a project-based voucher gives them a newly built affordable housing project that affordable multifamily housing that says we will take the vouchers. We will take vouchers for this many units. So that guarantees them those vouchers usable. Now, obviously, this doesn't help anybody get it faster because you've still got to get in line and wait for a voucher to come available. So you've still got that long wait list to get the vouchers. But still, you can use the vouchers with this program in concert. I've done them on a couple. I actually got a project right now I'm working on for San Antonio, Texas, that we're trying to get what are called BASH vouchers, which they're for veterans. We've also looked at some other of the project-based vouchers to get the affordable project done in Houston because the rents there are so low. I mean, in San Antonio, well, Houston too. Both in Houston and San Antonio, the rents are still so low down there compared to Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, and everything. Versus, especially with with interest rates being so high and the cost of rents, that there is no way to make an affordable project in San Antonio work right now without soft funds or the city or state putting money in saying, hey, we'll give you a zero interest loan with you don't really owe any of it back. We'll give you $8 million and you'll really don't pay anything, or you pay interest only. And that covers the big gap that's still left there, even with the deeper affordability, because that's how expensive it is. I mean, if you're not doing a small project, and really in these projects, you need them bigger right now because you need the rents or cash flow to cover the mortgage. Plus, I mean, you don't just have mortgage, you have operating costs. You have electric bills for the offices and the common areas. If they're not even the garden apartments, you've still got all the electricity for the lights and the street lights and the outside lights that aren't connected into the rooms. All right. And then you've got ground maintenance and you've got apartment maintenance, operating expenses to keep up all the equipment, the ACs, heaters, that it gets expensive. So apartments saying they need to evict somebody because they're not making payments isn't because they want to. They would love to keep that person there. Nobody likes to kick somebody out, but it's the fact that they can't afford it, and their banks will come literally take it from them if they get too far behind. It's not that they want to kick somebody out; they have no choice because they need the money to pay for that apartment. It's not all major big corporations like most people think that are doing these developers. I mean, yes, the company I work for has done a massive amount of developments. They make good money, but it's still a small family-owned company. It's not a major corporation. It's literally a family of like 3 that run it. It's not a major corporation. And sometimes your developers might have 1 or 2 properties, 2 or 3 properties, and that's it, with maybe 200 units total. And if you think of $1,200 a month per unit, but your mortgage is over $1 million a year, because you're talking to build a 150 unit new project in San Antonio is going to run you about 60, 70 million. A 390 unit project is going to run you over 110, 120 million. And this isn't even building market luxury. These are building pretty much to the level of market rate, but not luxury. So yeah, it gets pretty bad. But anyways, ultimately, these changes represent a powerful doubling down on a specific strategy that the most effective way to tackle the housing crisis is to build our way out of it. It's a recognition that demand side help like vouchers can only work if there are enough homes to choose from. By greasing the wheels of the LIHTC engine, this legislation aims to create that supply, generating not just housing, but jobs, economic activity, and more stable, economically diverse communities. It's a massive investment in the infrastructure of American life. And that's another big thing about this is why President Trump is pushing so much. I'm getting a little political here, but this is why he pushes so much for them to lower the interest rates. Because the only reason right now we haven't had a project start in 2 years, almost on 3 years now. Notice Trump's only been off for 6 months. We haven't had a project start in 3 years now because the interest rates and inflation under Biden, the projects just don't work right now. The interest rates have not dropped. Construction prices, some of them dropped back down, but most of them, while they've stopped increasing it in an absorbent amount of rate or a really fast rate, they've started slowing down and leveling off. Obviously, when people say, oh, inflation's cooling, well, prices aren't going to drop. Prices are going to just quit rising because prices are sticky. Economically, they're sticky. Once they make it somewhere, they don't want to go back down. You don't want deflation. That's a bad thing. So what you want to do is quit making your prices go above a certain amount. So obviously, somewhere in the 80s, some Australian economists went out and spit out the word 2%. And that's been like gospel ever since of inflation, even though it's no really law that says that inflation should be at 2% or below 2%. That's just some thing that they made up. Honestly, almost everybody on the development side and everything, we plan for 3%. So that's where it comes at. So now as we come to the first fourth segment, please also don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, hit that, those buttons so you won't miss future episodes. Also, I will now take any comments or answer any questions. If y'all have any before that we start the next segment, also, please don't forget to check out Patriots Corner at drlaw.com, our website. You can see it going across the bottom of the screen there. There you can sign up for access to our weekly blog, receive notifications about our next live show, and hit the subscribe button, which takes you to our locals community. And there you can gain access to extra content, support the show, and participate in one-on-one discussions. All right. Now here I'm gonna probably wait maybe till the middle or end of this, and then I'm gonna try to switch scenes here and see if I can get to showing y'all these pictures. So I can kind of show you because one of the problems with the LIHTC is overcoming the perception. Because when you say affordable housing, most people think of the projects in New York City. They think of these red brick buildings with small windows that almost look like a prison that have no amenities, no pool. They're falling apart. There's crime and barbed wire fences around the edge. I mean, that's the way most people see them. That's way most people think because that's kind of the perception everybody got. Because at first, all we had was 8% was the vouchers, and the majority of the time that was just a developer might do it for the government, but most of all those developments were owned by the city or the state or the housing authorities. They were actually owned by them, may have been developed by an outside company or outside construction company, but usually they owned them. So now segment 5 is overcoming perception, building stronger communities. Because even with these improvements, LIHTC developments often face a major hurdle that has nothing to do with finance. Public perception. When a new affordable housing project is proposed, it can trigger what's known as NIMBYism, not in my backyard syndrome. Community opposition is often fueled by the fears that deeply tied to misconceptions about affordable housing, many of which stem from, like I just mentioned, it's confusing with other programs like Section 8. The public often conflates these very different programs, leading to opposition based on stereotypes, but LIHTC developments are fundamentally different. They are brand new, fully rehabilitated. They're either brandly new built or fully rehabilitated buildings financed by private investment and must adhere to strict quality standards. Now, research has shown that there is little social stigma associated with living in a LIHTC home, especially when compared to other forms of housing assistance. Now, I'm going to go and pause it, see if I can get this to switch right. All right, so right now, this is, if you can see it big enough, but that is a pool area of my project down in Houston. Nice big pool, full size. It's wintertime, so it's not going to be perfectly cold blue, but it's still nice. This is a picture of the dog park on an Austin project I have. Um, this is the inside of the Houston one, in the office area in the front community room. I mean, fireplace, another room there, nice seating area, couch. This is a little room that's in that same one in Houston. It's kind of indoor outdoor area for the pool. So you can have events and stuff with the garage door opening out to the pool there. Put the bigger room over there. This is for another one we have in Spring Villas in Austin. You can see kind of the buildings there. That's the office for it. This is the buildings for Spring Villa right here. This is the setup of those buildings. Dude, these look like a project to like affordable housing to you. I mean, if you drive past it, you're not going to know it's an affordable housing project. It doesn't look like affordable housing. It looks like a brand new market rate apartment. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. This is another one that's in Fort Worth, Texas. So that is kind of where all of the stigma comes. Everybody thinks the old ones, and that's really what you're getting. I mean, those are just a couple of the projects. There's obviously a whole lot more. Now, obviously, affordable housing can be older apartments that were built in the 80s or 90s, but are in still a decent area, and they fully redo the outside of the building, remodel all the interiors, replace um, all the uh, refrigerators, stoves, bathroom, everything like that. Redo the pool, redo all the amenities. Literally, I don't know about other states, but in Texas, you have to have a pool. You have to have a community room. You have to have like a game room area. You have to have a business center. You either have to have washer and dryer connections with washer and dryers in all of the units, or you have to have a laundry room up front. So it has all the amenities that a high-end market rate apartment would have. Nice gym. I wish I had a picture of the gym. Some of the pictures on my home computer from the gym the fitness center I did there, because I would have showed you that. It's got a yoga room and everything in it. It looks like it's at a high-end apartment complex. So this misconception that affordable housing are fall apart, ghetto, that you're going to end up with increased crime or something, just furthest from the fact. I mean, you literally, I didn't pull it up because I don't, if somebody actually, like I said, if y'all want to let me know whether it's left on whether you leave it in the comments, hit me up on YouTube with comments, or go to my website and let me know, or hit me up on TikTok or X or whatever and let me know on it. But if you would like me to, or my LinkedIn page, if you would like me to go into a more in-depth and actual how LIHTC development works, show you the numbers, show you the actual, like the requirements of all the stuff you're required to build in it, that you literally have to meet a certain score. Even though it's not a competitive like application round, you still have to get a certain score of amenities that you're offering, that you're providing. You've got to have on-site service providers, stuff like that. So there's a lot of other stuff in there that they require to have, and it's not a bad housing. You can't tell that you're not living in affordable housing. I wish I'd known about it or my mom had known about it when I was younger, because that's another thing is LIHTC has really become it's not really advertised that well. And I mean, we still have no problem filling the apartments up. Now, obviously, there's a lot more. You have to go through background checks. You have to pass those. You have to go through income checks. So it's not like you're not working. You have to have a job. You can't make more than what the actual 60% of the area median income, or if it's 30% AMI units, you can't make more than 30% of the area median income. So there's more steps to get into it, and there still can be waiting lists, but usually when they first start building, you find one, then there's no waiting list. It's once they're up and going that there's sometimes a waiting list. I mean, right now there's such an oversupply in Austin, Texas, there's usually not a waiting list. So one of the most persistent fears is that building affordable housing will lead to an increase in crime. However, multiple studies show this is unfounded. In fact, the data often points in the opposite direction. A 2022 study in Orange County, California, found that the introduction of affordable housing developments was linked to a decrease in most types of crime, especially violent crime. Other research focuses specifically on LIHTC projects found that their development in the poorest neighborhoods is associated with significant reductions in violent crime at the county level. Rather than causing crime, the stability that quality affordable housing provides often helps lower it. This positive impact extends to the community as a whole. Well-managed LIHTC developments often lead to a revitalization of the surrounding area. One study by Stanford found that new LIHTC buildings in low-income neighborhoods can lead to an increase in nearby property values. These projects are not just buildings, they're investments in neighborhood stability and economic diversity. They also don't lower the cost of properties in higher value areas. If you live in a nice area, building as you can see from the looks of the pictures I showed you, you're not going to notice that it's an affordable housing. So it's not going to lower the value of your homes, even in a nice area. And just think about it. If you're police officers, your son's teacher, daughter's teacher, or the paramedic, or whoever that works in your area, especially if you're in a smaller town or in a nice part of town that's not really near, or you're in a nice area that's surrounded by more nice areas, you want that police officer to be late to work. You want that nurse to be late to work. You want that paramedic to be late to work and not there to save your life? Or would you rather have them living 2 minutes down the street? Because that's another misconception of LIHTC is people think it's going to be all these non-working, lazy government dependent people, and it's not. LIHTC, unless they are a project that has project-based vouchers or accepts vouchers, which then even with vouchers, you can't beat. There's not a very rarely do they have vouchers that will cover everything that you don't pay anything. You still have to pay money. Now, obviously, a voucher could only require you to pay $300 in rent a month, and the government covers the rest. But they still have to have some type of job or some type of form to get money to cover those vouchers. But most 4% projects do not work with vouchers just because there's not enough out there, even if we wanted to, as a way of to get soft funds to cover, because you get what's called a cash overhang or RAD, which is what's the difference between what they pay you a fair market value versus what the 60% rent is versus you get a little overhang in there that goes into your cash flow, increases your cash flow, and takes care of that funding gap you have. So as we're coming to the end of the show, once again, just like to remind you, please hit that follow, share, like, subscribe button so you can help get this out so more people see it, get past these, especially YouTube's algorithm. I have no idea what's going on, but there for a while I was getting good amount of views on YouTube, and now it's gone to like nothing. I mean, it's showing I have no views right now on YouTube, and usually I was getting to where I was having I had 100 views. I mean, it looks like right now I've had more views on X than I have on YouTube, and I have about the same amount of followers. Yeah, so let me know that, and then please don't forget to check out my website. There you can catch all the previous episodes. I'm gonna try to I try to do this one today because I really hadn't seen much in the news. I really want to broke down that I haven't beat with to death with beat to death, beat against rubber wall, however you want to say it, that I've talked about so much. This is really only the second time I've talked about affordable housing, which literally is what I do for a living. So, which is why I went back for my doctorate in law and policy, because obviously everything to do with affordable housing has to do with law and policy. It's whether it's zoning, urban planning, whether it's taxes and bonds, low income housing tax credits. I mean, I could go on and on about the way law and public policy falls in line with affordable housing. And it's one of those things that's always been a bipartisan, and it was actually Reagan who started the program. Because if you notice, I said in 1986, because this was a program that says, hey, we'll help with affordable housing, but we're not going to give all the taxpayers money out. So all this is saying is, okay, if you never build that apartment, I'm never going to see taxes from you anyways. All right. As a government, I'm not going to see that tax money or those tax credits. All right. So if you build this new apartment, provide all these people with quality, good homes to live in at an affordable price to where they're only paying 30% of their income, we will give you all these tax credits. Now, obviously, you sell those out for cash because you're not going to build enough apartments to cover 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars because literally that's what the LIHTC tax credits for equity on these projects now are 20, 30 million dollars. Right. You're never going to cover that in an apartment. You're never, even if you live in a state with high property taxes, high state taxes, federal taxes, everything, you're still not going to hit it. So that's that's why it's that way. I mean, it's just simple as that. You get the cover of that and it takes that and it's not taken from the tax base because they're not giving money out except for, yes, they do the government bonds, but that's really the government investing because you have to pay the bonds back. You owe, those bonds get paid back one way or the other, whether you have to sell it, whether you're forced to sell because you can't make the payments, or whether you pay it, sell it yourself, or whether you refinance it on a sell or whatever. They get their money back. So it's literally, that's the federal government just investing money is literally what it is. You're purchasing bonds from the federal government is what you're doing, and well, to a bank, you can't directly purchase them. The bank purchases them, then the bank finances, gives you the money to, yeah. So it goes to it's like I said, I can get fully into that in a different episode that's more on the development side. If I really see that there's a want for it and people actually want to learn about that or want to actually understand how it works. I mean, real estate development works because I hear all these people. I'm going to get political now here at the end. I hear all these people. Well, before I do my closing, I'm going to get political before I get to that. Is I hear all these people complain about, gripe and yelling, oh, President Trump, he filed bankruptcy 5 or 6 times. Okay. One, each individual apartment is a different company. So no, Trump Enterprises did not file bankruptcy 7 times. The individual projects, each one of his hotels or his whatever. Now, obviously, Trump Enterprises in the business structure is connected to it at the top of the pyramid, is like a trust or whatever, or as a general partner or whatever, but it's separated by limited liability companies. So each project is its own company, its own corporation. And when you're developing in hotels, high-end retail, stuff like that, those are the first things that when the economy go belly up. So out of 500-600 developments that he has done over his lifetime, only 7 have gone belly up. And I bet you if you check, the majority of them happen around the real estate crash in the 80s, the real estate crash in the 90s, and the early 2000s. Probably all 7 of those align with a economic collapse that has nothing to do with him. And I mean, I could sit here for 3 hours talking about just all the things that can go wrong that can cause you to have to file for bankruptcy and make a development go belly up to where you can't finish. That's how risky developing is. That's why not everybody does it. If it was so easy to do, everybody would become a real estate developer. But there is literally 100 different ways to Sunday that can go wrong that can cause you to go belly up and lose the project. And somebody else have to take over it, or literally they just tear it down because nope, it's not affordable to keep going at that time. There's so much stuff that can happen. It could be the city and county's fault. They decide you've been approved. You've gotten your civil, your environmental, everything's approved. And then you break ground, you start digging and you find a bone, either of possibly a body or a fossil. Now you're shut down, and it could be a couple weeks. It could be months and months and months. But the problem is if you're not building, you're still making interest payments on that debt. And you're talking about like a 36-month note that you can only extend once for 6 months. So if you get too far behind construction, now you've got to convert that loan to the perm. But the problem is you don't have your final C of O or certificate of occupancy to convert to permanent debt. So now the only way you can move forward is if you pay off all of that cost of construction, 60, 100 million in cash. And most developers do not have that on hand because real estate development is a debt. It's more debt than it is equity. So no, 7 But going bankrupt on 7 projects out of over 500 over 45 years is, especially when you're doing entertainment, retail, high-end apartments, luxury apartments, is nothing. I mean, honestly, we had a project just here in Austin a while back that was borderline bankrupt. The company's still pouring money into it. It had nothing to do with it being a bad project. Had to do with the fact that it just happened to come online when 100 other properties were all coming online at the same time in Austin, because back when interest rates were super low and construction cost was cheap, that was towards the end of President Trump's term. During President Trump's term and towards the end of his President Trump's term before COVID hit and then everything went to whack during Biden's term. In that project, if it wasn't an affordable project, it probably would have gone bankrupt. So this thing that, I'm sorry, it has nothing to do with being a bad business person. There's just so much stuff out of your control that you can't control or account for. You can try to account for everything in the world. You can try to be as conservative as you can with the project. But if you're too conservative, you can't get a project done. And just sometimes stuff happens that's totally out of your control, that there's nothing you can do, and you have to bankrupt the project, or you lose your whole company. And you lose the other 400 projects that are employing people. So, yeah, it sucks to file for a Chapter 11 bankruptcy on a single project and let that construction crew go, but you'll get them back on the next project. It's just the way that construction goes. Ask construction teams. It happens all the time, especially when the economy goes bust in the middle of a project, or in the middle of construction, or in the middle of planning, right as construction starting, or something gets stalled in the middle of planning. Like we had one in Austin that this next door neighbor, he just wanted to make complaints and making complaints and making complaints and making complaints. And then Austin Civil, and we've already literally started construction. We've already started putting in foundations, got buildings going. And then all of a sudden Austin decides, oh, wait, that environmental person messed this, and this. So you can't do any more construction. We got to review the whole plans. Construction was like a year behind because of them. Nothing we did. It was because some new environmental person came in and decided that the last environmental person didn't do their job. Because that's how a lot of these cities are, so they don't have a set of standards for the department. So as soon as a new environmental reviewer comes in, they could say everything the previous person did is wrong or wasn't good enough and redo everything. And yank your permits in the middle of construction, asking you to move foundation, saying, oh, this building can't be here, and now it's got to be here. It's insane. So now we started with a housing market that feels broken. For decades, the public conversation has been dominated by programs like Section 8, focused on helping people pay rent. But working quietly in the background, a far larger engine has been chugging along, focused not on paying for homes, but on building them. The low-income housing tax credit is a uniquely American solution, a market-based, private sector-driven partnership that utilizes the tax code to achieve a social goal. It's not simple, it's not perfect, but it is by far our most powerful tool for creating affordable housing at scale. Now, the recent changes in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act are a deliberate effort to clear the log jams in the system, unleash private investment, and accelerate the construction of over a million new homes, or really units, really. It's a massive bet that addressing the supply side of the equation, we can begin to make a real lasting impact on the affordability crisis. Now, additionally, there are still some significant changes needed in our affordable housing program that could benefit from public-private partnerships. These changes would also provide recipients with the tools and support necessary to pursue education or technical training, helping them rise out of poverty and become independent of government assistance. Of course, this wouldn't apply to police officers, firefighters, and teachers, but it could be helpful for individuals who qualify for the voucher program or on the lower end of the AMI, but still out of the voucher program. Now, while I will not elaborate on my ideas for implementing these changes during this live session, I will publish them in my doctoral. They will end up being published with my manuscript or dissertation upon completion, which should be here in about a year. I know that if this program with the changes I am working on had been in effect when I was a kid or early adult years, I would have completed college 10 to 15 years ago without hardly incurring any debt. I wouldn't still be going to college in my 40s, late 30s, early 40s with 3 kids, working a full-time job and doing content creation. So, which is why I don't do all of this off the cuff. Now, a lot of today's was off the cuff because of the fact, like I said, it's affordable housing. I know it. I could sit here and talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. I've already gone. The script I had was only 30 minutes of script, 12 pages. I'm at an hour and 1 minute right now. I could go for another 2 hours on this subject, especially if people started commenting and actually asking me any questions or have any questions about the program or how it works or anything like that. How to get into the program, stuff like that. I could go on for hours with this thing. And this is stuff that was in this big, beautiful bill that Democrats are pushing. Republicans, over 50 senators over 50 Republican senators had co-signed onto, and hundreds of Republican congressional members had signed on to. I think there was only like 2 congressional members in Texas that were Republican who had not signed on to the bill that was added to this tax bill, which literally is why they added it, to try to get some Democrats to vote on it, but Democrats didn't even want to vote on that. Luckily, it got through because they've been trying to get this through since I've been in the industry since 2019. They've been trying to get it through since then. So when I got lucky, I came in right at the end of it was still good. It was still super busy, but then it just died off. Like as soon as Biden came into office, the business just tanked. It did. Last year was my company's worst year in their 45-year history under Biden. Go figure. Now, but as we've seen, building is only half the battle. Overcoming the ingrained biases and fears about affordable housing is the other half. The evidence suggests that these fears are largely misplaced. LIHTC projects can strengthen communities, stabilize neighborhoods, and even reduce crime. So while Section 8 helps people find a chair in a national game of musical chairs, the LIHTC is the program that's trying to add more chairs to the room. The real question is, in a country with such a vast need, will this be enough to finally turn the tide? The answer will unfold on construction sites and in planning meetings across the country. It's a story we'll be watching closely. What do you think is the most effective way to solve the housing crisis? Is it better to focus on building more supply or providing more direct aid to renters? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to understand more about the complex systems that shape our economy and our affordable housing, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next video or the next episode I do on this. Also, please let me know if you want more episodes on this. If you do want me to cover more on it, there are people who want to hear it. Obviously, the reason I like doing this on X and Facebook and some of the stuff other than TikTok is people can watch it and replay after I'm go live, so it can still be rewatched again and again. But if people watch this and they hear and you want me to do more episodes like this, let me know. I'll do them. I'll cover more deeply into the affordable housing program. Obviously, I'm not going to get into a lot of the ideas I have to even further fix the program because the fact I'm literally going to be doing research and publishing a paper on that. So I don't want any of it getting out right now and really can't talk about it because then somebody could pick it up, steal it, try to put it on, and then I have to pick something else because it has to be something new. It has to be a new contribution to the industry. And while some of the things have been tried that I think needs to be done, they've been tried individually. They've never been tried together. They've never fully been implemented. So it's still a lot to be studied on it, which is why I don't want to mention it right now. So please join me right now. It's Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday evening. 2 more weeks is probably going to go to Wednesday and Friday, or it'll be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. It just depends. Some weeks it may only be Wednesday, Friday, just how much paper I have to write because I start back into my doctoral classes in 2 weeks. Until then, it'll be every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday evening. Usually on Fridays, it's around 7 o'clock. Wednesdays, usually 6 or 7. Then Sundays is 4 or 5. So just let me know. Obviously, you can catch every episode live on YouTube, Rumble, Twitch, Facebook, or X. If you can't catch them live, you can also catch those episodes on Spotify, you can catch the actual video on Spotify and audio, or you can just catch the audio on Amazon and iHeartRadio. So thank you for tuning in today, and hopefully thank you for tuning in after this. Let me know if y'all would like any more content on this specific subject, and have a good night and a good rest of your weekend. I will see y'all on Sunday.